this will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before.
You know what the contract is?
I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million, something like that.
The biggest shock here is that Nike is not only locking down Caitlin Clark with a reworked deal, but they're also suing Adidas for trying to sneak in and interfere with their contract. The painful realization finally hit Nike, and they gave Adidas the finger.
These leftists are idiots. Idiots. They're not about business. They're not about growing the WNBA. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity, what they're doing to Caitlin Clark.
Legally speaking, it is obvious that two rival behemoths cannot simply snoop around in each other's athlete rosters in such a way. Adidas is now scrambling, claiming that they only made Clark an offer that she declined. But let's face it, they are up against the largest name in the industry, Nike.
However, I will say that Caitlin Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA. And she is getting paid a measly $28 million for 8 years as opposed to Wemby's 100.
It's strangely exciting to see this conflict play out since, in the end, Nike wasn't foolish enough to let their golden goose escape. And let's not forget how the internet ridiculed Nike for nearly making a mistake in the first place. It's been an amusing mess all around.
WNBA season, it was announced that Caitlin Clark signed a massive endorsement deal with Nike. This deal was for 8 years, $28 million with a signature sneaker included. Now, at the time, a lot of
People were shocked because this wasn't just a casual deal. Rather, it was a full-fledged takeover attempt. Adidas wasn't playing nice. They saw the opportunity and went for it while Nike was caught napping. I mean, all they tried to do was scoop up what Nike simply forgot about, and honestly, they nearly pulled it off. This wasn't some random gossip you see flying around Twitter either.
Nike struck absolute gold when they signed Caitlin Clark to an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal. So why in the world? And with that, Nike has not done one thing to promote her. We have not seen any commercials. We have not seen any ads. We have not seen any Caitlin Clark merchandise. And we for sure as hell have not seen any Caitlin Clark signature.
However, this is where it becomes even more juicy. Nike already had Caitlin Clark locked in, but instead of treating her like the basketball goddess she is, they managed to screw everything up. They promised her a signature shoe and a collection that would launch in 2024, but in typical Nike manner, they botched the rollout.
So we might not get a signature shoe from Caitlin until 2026 or 2027. I didn't mean for this video to turn into a rant, but this is just another example about how people have fumbled the gift that is.
They postponed the release until 2026 or perhaps 2027, which is more than simply a delay. It's a serious contract violation in bold letters. How can you make that mistake?
The praise, the commercials, the ads, the merch, like all of the things that she should have gotten during this rookie season. Nike hasn't produced one ad or commercial featuring Clark since she turned pro. And despite a signature shoe being part of Nike's agreement with Clark,
based on conversations with people in the know, it indeed has something to do with the WNBA MVP and Nike athlete, A'ja Wilson. But beyond Wilson, it's about the culture at the company that's more concerned with quelling noise rather than making it, as Nike once used to.
Apparently, Nike decided that Wilson's shoe should be released first because she is the MVP and, let's just say, it doesn't have the drama attached to her name like Clark. That's the kind of thinking going on behind the scenes, playing it safe with Wilson while completely forgetting that Clark has an army of fans waiting to crash the internet for her shoe. If you're shocked, it's clear that Nike didn't make this decision based solely on merit or sales potential. Despite Clark's enormous fan base, Nike felt it was a wise decision to push her sneaker back due to a media-driven narrative about playing it safe in the most absurd way imaginable. In the interim, I would wear this shoe. When Adidas noticed Nike taking their time, they didn't just watch helplessly as Nike botched Caitlin Clark's shoe deal. Adidas entered the market with ease and made Clark a huge offer that included more money and benefits, basically everything Nike ought to have done from the beginning, but didn't. Adidas recognized their fantastic chance and moved quickly.
Currently the best player in the WNBA? Yes. Is Caitlin Clark currently the face of the WNBA? Yes. Do I think if A'ja Wilson dropped a shoe and Caitlin Clark dropped a shoe today at the very same time, that Caitlin Clark would outsell A'ja's shoe by 100 times?
Here's where Adidas truly shined. Whereas Nike was still mired in corporate red tape, they allowed Clark creative freedom over her own marketing campaign. Adidas went all out to give Clark the kind of freedom that athletes hardly ever get. It wasn't just about wearing shoes. Clark was given the freedom to create her own advertising campaigns, build her own brand, and communicate directly with her expanding fan base. Nike was completely unaware of it.
The hype that Caitlin Clark had going into this season, we will not see that again. She came off of playing in a national championship game that had over 20 million people.
Additionally, there is the chronology for shoe releases. Remember how Nike kept putting Clark's signature shoe farther and farther into the future, 2024, 2025, and possibly even 2026. Adidas wasn't playing that game. Instead, they promised her a quicker release date, so her followers wouldn't have to wait a century to get their hands on her shoes. While Nike was still shuffling papers trying to work out a launch strategy, Adidas realized that Clark's followers weren't going to wait around forever and were prepared to drop her shoe as soon as possible.
She deserves it! She deserves it!
Nike, on the other hand, was in full panic mode because they knew that if Clark accepted a US offer, it would be a PR disaster because, in a head-to-head shoe launch between Clark and A.A. Wilson, Clark would wipe the floor with her fan base. Nike knew that if both shoes dropped at the same time, Clark's would sell out in a heartbeat, leaving Wilson's gathering dust. Suddenly, Nike was scrambling to save what they did, going into full damage control mode in an attempt to revive the original contract after months of pushing Clark to the sidelines.
Despite winning unanimous WNBA Rookie of the Year, they've got no plans for a Caitlin Clark shoe. Why not? Well, the official reason from Nike is an obvious lie. What are they hiding? Is sports losing popularity? No, Adidas has done pretty well over that time despite ending their partnership.
But let's be honest for a moment. It was too little, too late, and Clark's fan base wasn't exactly pleased with the way she'd been treated. Fans had witnessed Nike sideline Clark to push Wilson, and now that Adidas was in the picture, Nike was looking more like the antagonist in this tale. It wasn't just about sneakers anymore. It was also about loyalty, respect, and the way Nike had handled their rising star behind the scenes. Things started to heat up after Billie Jean King, an Adidas ambassador, tweeted about Caitlin Clark's accomplishments. Insiders were talking about Nike's desperate attempt to close the transaction. According to rumors, Nike was throwing everything at the wall in the hopes that something would stick. They couldn't afford to lose Clark, not only because she was a baller, but also because of what she represented off the court. Losing her to Adidas would be extremely detrimental to Nike's reputation, especially with all the racial and social dynamics already at play, and it all happened because experts were saying these things.
LeBron James had his own signature shoe his rookie year. So 20 years ago, Nike was nimble enough and had enough vision to see that, hey, let's get LeBron's shoe out here. This guy's going to be a big deal. They can't do this for Caitlin Clark.
There were even rumors of a lawsuit, as if that wasn't enough drama. Brewing, yes, Nike wasn't just sitting around trying to work out a deal. They were also getting ready to take Adidas to court. They were accusing Adidas of contract manipulation, essentially claiming that Adidas had broken certain clauses in Clark's original Nike contract. Nike wasn't going to let Adidas sneak in and steal their athlete without a fight. So on top of everything else, there was talk of a legal battle between two of the biggest sports companies in the world.
Yeah, contract is? I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million.
This wasn't just about shoes anymore. It was a full-fledged corporate war. Adidas made their move, and now Nike was trying to claw their way back into the game. Whether or not they could actually stop Adidas from signing Clark was still up in the air, but one thing was certain: Nike wasn't going down without a fight. If you think it wasn't that big of a deal, you should know that these massive endorsement contracts aren't just casual agreements. Athletes aren't allowed to switch brands whenever they want, especially when an exclusivity clause is involved.
Landed a major endorsement deal with Adidas. This partnership is a game changer. It's a huge win for Clark and for women's basketball.
And guess what? Nike has a specific clause in Caitlin Clark's contract that clearly states that she cannot endorse any other brands while under contract, especially their biggest rival Adidas. However, Adidas appears to have decided to push their luck anyway. So, what is Adidas being accused of? Rumor has it that Adidas has been working behind the scenes to try to convince Clark that she deserves more than Nike is offering. Some whispers even suggest that Adidas may have thrown in a few extra perks under the table to entice her.
This will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before. Obviously, little girls are going to wear them. I think plenty of dudes are going to wear them. You're just going to see those things in high demand.
Adidas should have known better than to tamper with the exclusivity clause in Clark's original Nike contract. But here they are allegedly using some behind-the-scenes tactics to take Clark away. It's like watching two fighters in the ring, but one of them is acting dishonestly and Nike is calling foul, but we're way past rumors. According to sources, Nike's legal team is currently actively preparing a lawsuit against Adidas, accusing them of contract tampering. If Nike proves this in court, it could upend not just the sports industry, but the entire endorsement market. The world imagined two of the biggest companies suing one of the most attractive basketball players. It's going to get serious, and Caitlin Clark is right in the center of it.